got 5 tips for you that I wish someone had taught me when I first started SQL. You won't believe number 3. Number 1. Tools and settings. There are a couple of settings that are definitely worth changing when you first start off in SQL. And that's what we're going to have a look at in this one. Could you go to the Tools section and then down to Options. There's extensions of options in here, but the one I'm first interested in is under Environment and then here Fonts and Colours. One of the most common kinds of colour blindness is red and green. SQL utilises these extensively via comments, literal text and error messages. You can change any and all of these if you go into Fonts and Colours, and then looking down your list you'll find each of the colours that you're interested in. So for example, if I went to comment, I could change the item foreground colour to something that's more readily available. This will only affect your computer and not other people's. So yes, if you really wanted to, you could code everything in Windings, although I'm not going to recommend that. The second option that I want you to have a look at is under Text Editor, All Languages, and when you click on that, you'll see you've got the option for line numbers. Not only are these useful when you're reading your error messages, which give you a line number, but they're also useful when you want to chat to a colleague about a big section of code. Another one to watch out for is Query Results. If you go into Query Results and then SQL Server, you'll see there are several ways that you can export your data. Results to grid is the default and it will give you an almost Excel sheet in your results window. Results to text will allow you to return far more data, but in a less structured method. Useful if you're limited with copying and pasting methods. Finally, you can do results to file. So if you want to, you can export this as a simple text file or even as a CSV file. These icons can also be found up the top of your screen with these 3 little icons here. Results to text, results to grid, and of course results to file. Number 2. Comments. When you've written a bit of code, it can sometimes be difficult to tell when you come back to it why you did what you did. Comments are a useful thing not only for others when they're reading your code, but they're also useful for you when you come back to it. I know I've forgotten what I've done so many times it's beyond count. But Past Sam has given me a hand. So let's have a look at that. The first method you have is the double hyphen. The double hyphen will comment out anything on the same line as it after the 2 hyphens. This method works absolutely fine for small amounts of text or if you are writing your code laid out like this. However, if you prefer to write your code all on one line or as few lines as possible, this isn't going to help you as it will comment out the rest of your select statement. Instead for you, there's a different method. A /* will open a multi-line comment. This will continue to be a comment until you close it. This allows me to put comments right in the middle of whatever I'm writing, and it won't interrupt the rest of the code. Finally, there are sometimes situations where you're going to want to comment out an entire section of code. And both of these methods require a little bit of lifting. It'd be nice if there was a shorter method. Highlight what you want to comment out. Then up on your ribbon, you'll see 2 little icons, one that looks like a paragraph in black and turquoise, and one that looks like a black paragraph with a little back arrow. If you click on the one that looks like a paragraph, it applies 2 hyphens to the beginning of every line that you have highlighted. As you can imagine, the one to the right of it removes those hyphens. There's also the combined shortcut, Control-K, Control-C, or Control-K and Control-U. Number 3, the query editor. The query editor allows you to write code without having to write code. Let's see what I'm talking about. Right click on an open query and go down to Design Query in Editor. In here it creates a visualization of your model. So I've listed out all my tables, views, functions and synonyms. I'm going to take two tables, the film and director table. Double click or single click and choose Add. When you're ready, click Close. If there are any relationships hard coded into your model, you'll see that those are rendered. Let's imagine there isn't one though. I can right click on a relationship and choose Remove. This allows me to see all of the columns and I can take a wild guess at what the relationship is. Here I've got two columns called Director ID, which is a pretty fair indicator. I'm going to grab the bold Director ID, as that's telling me it's the primary key, and I'm going to drag and drop it on top of the Director ID in the film table, the foreign key. And voila, the relationship's created. The default relationship is an inner join, which means that we'll only get films that have a director, and only directors that have a film. It can be very confusing when you start off trying to work out the difference between left, right, full, and inner. This query editor makes those relationships really easy. Right click on the diamond between the two, and then don't ask yourself if you want left or right, answer yourself this simple question. Do I want all of the films, even if they don't have a matching director? Do I want all of the directors, even if they don't have a matching film? Well, answer the question. Do you want all films? Yes, I do. Right click again. Do you want all the directors? I'm not sure. If I look down at my code, it's automatically created a left outer join when I selected all films. So no need to worry about it. Do you know what? I will take all those directors. Give that a click, and you'll see you've now got a full outer join. I have every single film, I have every single director, and where applicable, they've been matched up. From here, you can actually write the rest of your select statement, although it does have some limitations. I'm going to tick the title, I'm going to tick the full name, and I'm going to tick the runtime minutes. You'll see that as I tick these, the middle window is populated, as well as my bottom window, which is writing the select statement. The select statement order is determined by the column order. I can move these around, so if I wanted the director first, in the leftmost column I can drag the full name up above the title. In there, I can then give it an alias if I want to. And you'll see in my bottom select statement, I now have an alias. I can also apply sorts. I want these in a reverse alphabetical order. Sort type, use the drop down, descending. Click away, and voila, I've now got an order by. I also want to add a filter, so I'm going to go to my runtime minutes, I'm going to go along, I'm going to say all films that are greater than 2 hours or 120 minutes. Click away, and you'll see it's add a where clause as well. I don't want the runtime minutes to show, however, and that's what output does. I'm going to go down, I'm going to untick runtime minutes, and you'll see it's removed from the select statement while still being referenced in the where clause. If I wanted to use group by or having, I can right click on the background, and then I could choose add group by. I'm not planning on using any aggregate functions, so I'm not going to at this point. Click OK, and you'll see it creates your code, which you can then execute. Number 4, SQL Formatters. The query editor from the last example is great, don't get me wrong, but the code that it spits out is less than readable. And we've all got colleagues who have that obsession with writing their code on as few lines as possible, which is fine, but let's have a look at how we could make this neater. Highlight your code, and then if you open up your browser and type in SQL Formatter. There are lots of SQL formatters available, but my personal favourite is Poor SQL. Not only because it has a hilarious name, take pity on your SQLite with instant free and open source formatting, but it also has the ability to, as it says, work offline and even has a plugin if IT approves it. I paste in my messy SQL Click on Formatted SQL, and voila, I now have some neat SQL. These settings can all be changed over on the right hand side. And as long as you don't have clear browser settings, then these will remain in there, so you can make it truly your own. When you're happy with your code, copy your select statement, return to SQL, and overwrite your existing code. It's that easy. Number 5. SQL Snippets. There are some bits of code that you'll find yourself writing often, and this can be a bit of a pain and a repetitive task, especially if you're trying to remember where you saved them. One option, of course, is you can do your file save as and save this file as a .SQL file. So I could save this onto my desktop as something along the lines of helpful code, give that a save, and one of the advantages is I can actually open that with Notepad. I don't need to launch SQL. And I'll have all of my helpful code ready to go. But what would be even nicer is if I could use and recall stuff at the click of a button. And that's what a SQL snippet allows me to do. I'm going to cut my code for later, and I'm going to right click. In there you'll see I've got Insert Snippet and Surround with Snippet. Surround with Snippet is for things like when I'm writing a begin-end block, an if, or a while loop. But I've also got Insert Snippets for things like structures. So maybe you want to write yourself a table and you can't remember the syntax. If I click on Table, I can see there, Create Table, and it will write the basis of the code for me. Even better than this is the ability to have your own snippets to hand. For example, if I wanted to save my earlier select statement, if you go to Tools, and then go down to Code Snippets Manager, you can actually import your own code. So I want to add into my code snippets a little bit of code, that part that we saw earlier. Unfortunately, it requires HTML to actually write your code. Thankfully, as always, someone in the community has already gone ahead and created one for you. For example, this one here, Snippets Generator, is free for your first 14 days, but it's also available as a paid download. It makes snippet creation nice and easy. If I go to New Snippet, all I need to do is paste in my code. I can set a description, so my title is going to be Basic SQL. My description is going to be Query Films. The author is, of course, me. I can then generate my snippet, save it somewhere accessible. I'm going to save mine onto the desktop. I'm just going to call this Basic. As soon as I've imported it, I can just delete the original file. Give that a save, swap back to SQL, click on my Code Snippets folder, go down to Import, navigate to my desktop, click on my file, click Open, tick the folder I wanted to go into, My Code Snippets, and choose Finish. Click OK, and now whenever I want to call that code, I can right click, I can go down to Insert Snippet, into My Code Snippets, and I'll see all the bits of code that I've found useful over the years available for me. So I can call my Basic SQL, or maybe I need a hand remembering the clauses of select. Right click, Insert Snippet, My Code Snippets, and then I could choose Clauses of Select. I hope you found these hints useful and that you'll make use of those going forward in your SQL career. Is there anyone in particular that you would suggest for new beginners? Pop them in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.